Oh, I should tell you, the bum 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 bum, and
was it under the bridge, underneath the bridge.
What underneath the bridge? What
is it? The Nirvana song?
Yeah. It's that's why
it was just an orchestral version of the.
Well, it's not an orchestral version, but it's the thing that like
version.
Classical composers and film composers do, where they take a motif and they put variations of that motif throughout the. That's why. So that boom 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 boom. You heard that. You heard and in like the car, that fucking terrible car chase sequence with the penguin. That was those.
Which is fine. I've just watched all the
Fast and
Furious movies, and that car chase was fine. It's not a good one, but
I mean,
I could tell what was supposed to be happening, even if it wasn't always clear where everything was.
You're a better man than me, Gunga Din, if you can tell what the fuck was going on in that.
There were trucks and things started to fall off at trucks, so we had to swerve around a bit.
I mean,
you could tell what was meant to be happening.
Maybe it was more coherent than like a Michael Bay chase sequence or something like that, but that's a pretty fucking low bar that I'm comparing it to.
I'd say it's a middling car chase.
I'd say it's a sub-middling car chase. And Ave Maria was also peppered throughout the soundtrack. We heard it twice in its proper form, like Something in the Way. We heard it twice in its proper form, and then we heard a variation of the Ave Maria melody throughout the soundtrack in the. Well, it was a more chromatic sounding, minor
What's the
sounding.
significance of that then?
Well, I don't know. It's just he's decided that Ave Maria and Something in the Way are going to be the two central, the two kind of cornerstones of the soundtrack, and so most of the soundtrack seemed to be based on those two pieces of music.
They were both playing in bits before the Riddler murdered someone.
Half the music in the soundtrack was going back and forth between two chords, which might have been the exact two chords from Something in the Way, or there might have been two chords that were kind of had a similar kind of relationship to each other, but. Batman's like hanging, and she like pulls him up, and then she's like straddling him from that position, the natural position of lifting him up and then getting him on the. She's like straddling him on top of him. I was thinking, what if Commissioner Gordon had been the one that had pulled him up? Would he be like straddling him at this point and sat sitting on top of him, having dialogue with him? It's the classic contrivance of Hollywood where it's just natural and normal that men and women are just going to end up on top of each other for supposedly completely non-sexual reasons.
Yeah.
Even in the Chris Nolan Batmans, which are kind of the most realistic up to this point, there was still a sense that he could just kind of zip line out of anywhere like easily at any moment. It wasn't just like he was in a scene and then he was gone from the scene. He had to have a discussion with Gordon about how he would get out of the police building, and he gave him like a key. And he had to like run past all these police officers, and then he had to figure out how to get off the roof. And when Catwoman ran off, he had to catch up with her, and he didn't. There wasn't just a sense that Batman's going to go now. He's just going to magically get there. It was like he kind of latched something onto this girder and then started running down the girder with the thing trailing behind him. There was more of a sense of like we need to think precisely about how Batman gets to the different places and what he can and can't do. And he wasn't beating that many people up in a really short space of time, you know what I mean? The fight sequences felt fairly realistic, and what he was able to do in the course of the film felt fairly realistic. I felt that I don't like technology that doesn't exist in films unless you're doing like a full-blown sci-fi. Those contact lenses, those don't exist, do they?
No.
Because like, how would you power them? Where's the fucking power cell on those things?
I said I quite like the look of the city. It looked like proper, like Gotham should look, but also like it could be a real place.
It did seem quite run down in some way or another.
Yeah. But also like quite cramped with like lots of tall buildings and stuff.
Yeah, just it's this thing of like, I don't know, a film which to me seems to be taking itself very seriously. It has all like the villains at the end are basically like 4chan villains, aren't they? They're like the El Paso shooting type guys. You've got like kind of very realistic, kind of serious stuff dotted throughout it, and then for some reason Batman literally has thousands of bats flying about in this base that he's got, and it's like, why are those there? If we're going for realism, why has he got just a warehouse full of bats? Why has he done that?
Have somewhere to live.
Yeah, I feel like it's trying to have its cake and eat it a little bit with the silliness and the seriousness. It's interesting to note there's no sense of the split personalities in this one. There's no sense of putting on a kind of front of being like a louche millionaire playboy.
That's kind of intention. That's the point of this film is it's like his character arc, isn't it? He goes from vengeance to whatever the hell he's supposed to be next. He's like at the end, he's like, oh, vengeance isn't enough. I need to be something more. So it's like he's going from the kind of broody one who only wants to punch guys he doesn't like, basically, to being like this sort of more heroic type of figure. That's like his character arc during the film.
There was just, I know you say he's stoical and stuff, but I just felt like there just wasn't any depth or complexity to this character. He was just a bit.
No, I think it's fine for Batman. It makes sense.
I mean, I can't easily.
It'd be nice to have a bit more variety, but I don't think that. I think it would have been out of character. Probably.
I definitely feel like the Michael Keaton Batman, for example, Bruce Wayne / Batman, feels more like a real real human being.
He was just playing Michael Keaton, though. He wasn't playing Batman, really.
Maybe there's something to be said for that, though. It's
he's kind of dead inside. Like he only cares about one thing and nothing. All the rest, everything else. Like Alfred's all worried about him because he never comes out of his basement. He just sits around brooding all day, and he doesn't care about women or the Wayne Foundation or any of that stuff. But then you got the mayor trying to convince him to kind of come out and help the city. Nigma, he was like an orphan. He was in the orphanage talking about how much they were suffering there. While like the rest of the city ignored them.
Yeah.
So that's like I reckon the point of that is to try and motivate Batman to kind of do the Bruce Wayne thing of like renew the city.
Right. So you're
renovate the city.
You're talking about thematically. It starts off with him saying vengeance, and then he hears the guy at the end saying vengeance, and then a counterpoint to that is, but what about so you're doing all the like beating up the bad guys, but what about trying to help out the people that actually need you, like orphans who need a nice bed to sleep in?
And he kind of realises he needs to do more, and that's.
Yeah.
So that the no more Riddlers appear.
If that didn't come across to me, is that because I'm stupid or because the film didn't do a very good job? It didn't
state it explicitly, but I think that's clearly meant to be his character arc through the film. And also he's not interested in chicks, but then he meets Selena Kyle.
There was the shot,
and she's had.
There was the shot at the end. He kind of reaches out. He has a flare, and he kind of reaches out, and it's an orphan. It's the boy who's dead. I think it's the boy who's dead.
Yeah.
It's an orphan who grabs him, and then there's that shot of him leading the people out. Bit heavy-handed, but whatever.
Yeah, I wasn't quite sure what. I guess he's supposed to be.
He's being a leader of people rather than just a guy who beats the shit out of people in subways.
What's exactly the meaning of this shot?
Well, I think you've just nailed it. Basically, it's like he's shifting away from his position at the start of the film of just beating up guys in
at the start of the film.
Subways.
He's just hiding in darkness, but now he's like leading with a light. He's a
light,
and hope.
Very heavy-handed. I say heavy. It seems heavy-handed to me.
A heavy-handed metaphor.
But it's like I didn't pick it up. Yeah. Zoe Kravitz is there, but she's very.
She's pretty, and she was fine.
You could have cut like half an hour and not lost anything.
Not
even lost a single line of dialogue, and it still wouldn't have felt rushed or anything.
I didn't feel like it was massively too slow. I'm sure you could have sped things up a little bit, but I didn't. I don't think it bothered me too much.
No, the thing about Chris Nolan is I was watching because I've never liked them, but you were rewatching them recently, and I was sort of in here watching bits of them, thinking, "Oh, I'll go and do something else, go and do some work or something." But I was kind of getting pulled into them, like because the scenes don't run on that too long, and they're kind of like one scene leads on to the next scene, and then there's an interesting set piece here, and then there's a different set piece. Like they're quite entertaining and they're quite full of stuff, aren't they? So I was even though I don't like them, if you turn on a Chris Nolan Batman film halfway through, you might end up watching quite a lot of it because they're quite absorbing, they're quite entertaining. Whereas this Batman film, I think you would struggle to even watch it a second time because it's so slow and boring. I think you'd find it a bit of an arduous experience to sit through that again. Maybe if you compare like the sexiness of like Michelle Pfeiffer, the kind of chemistry between Michelle Pfeiffer and Michael Keaton versus the chemistry between these two, it just felt very stiff and wooden and awkward and not. There was nothing entertaining about their relationship, was there? It's another potentially emotional thing where you just don't feel invested in it at all. But I do think with Robert Pattinson, it's the acting is flat because of the script. I don't think he's a I do think he's a good actor.
It's stoical. It's withdrawn.
It's lacking in variety.
Yeah, it's a bit one note.
Yeah, it's monotone.
But that's because he's stoical.
Because I quite like Ben Affleck as an actor. I think of his.
I don't think he's really got the kind of he can do the fake depth that you need for a Batman.
I think he's a lot more agreeable than the typical Bruce Wayne, isn't he? He seems. Yeah. There's a kind of sense of him like bringing people together, and that's literally what he's doing.
He's just a blokey down to earth, ordinary guy.
He's a bit more schlubby and relatable, and
yeah.
I definitely would put the Michael Keaton and the Ben Affleck Batman's performances above the Robert Pattinson one, but again that's just because of the screenplay and not as a criticism of Robert Pattinson. I just don't enjoy one note performances.
They're more likable, but I don't think they're better performances necessarily.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know, but likability is kind of what it's all about. Like, how much do I enjoy watching the film? I was just bored by Robert Pattinson's completely one-note performance. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying it's boring.
Stuff going on underneath the surface.
Ben Affleck's mediocre performance in those shoddy films were, more likable and more entertaining probably than Robert Pattinson's solid performance in this more solid film. I don't know. I just think one-note performances aren't very watchable, aren't very interesting.
We haven't compared it to Batman and Harley yet. How does it compare to Batman and Harley?
Well, that's quite an obvious point of one's a comedy and one has less humour in it than any Batman film to date. Even the fucking Zack Snyder Justice League type movies, I think, have more levity and more gags in them than this did, I would say. I think if you actually go through all these screenplays and count the number of things that look like they're supposed to be proper gags, I think this will be the most gag-free Batman film that there's
it
ever
definitely,
been.
Yeah, remembering the Planet of the Apes movies, it definitely seems like a director who doesn't do humour at all. Having watched the Nolan ones recently, I'd rather have that than like there's a few jokes in the Nolan films that just doesn't just don't really hit at all.
If Matt Reeves is not if we've signed on Matt Reeves to make our Batman film and he's not comfortable he doesn't know how to do comedy, then we're not going to make him do it. I'm not going to force him to do it because I think that would be worse than having no comedy.
Yeah.
But then why sign up Matt Reeves if you've seen a bunch of Matt Reeves films and they're all really slow and leaden and unenjoyable?
Because
it seems obvious that Batman is supposed to have some degree of levity.
Because all the nerds want gritty, realistic Batman. They don't want no jokes.
But the nerds don't know what they want, though.
They want Batman to be different from the Marvel universe.
They think they know what they want.
Everyone's doing wisecracks all the time.
The underlying problem is I would not have signed up Matt Reeves to direct my Batman movie. I'm not even saying a Sam Raimi Batman would have been better, but it wouldn't have felt as boring. Because the Planet of the Apes films feel boring as well, don't they? I mean, if I said those films are boring, you wouldn't consider that to be a hugely inaccurate adjective to describe the Planet of the Apes movies. But yeah, that's because you say, like, what should the Riddler's costume have been like? I'm like, if we're hiring, we shouldn't have hired Matt Reeves. If we're going to hire Matt Reeves, then let Matt Reeves do his Matt Reeves film. Don't be like, oh, Matt Reeves, you're really good at like really serious, really realistic films, and we want the bad guy to have a bright green bowler hat with a question mark on it. Let's not take that.
He should have at least. You don't have to have the bowler hat. He should have at least had like some question marks dotted around on his hat or something.
But this is the thing. It becomes jarring if I find it jarring that she's drinking milk.
Why even bother giving yourself the name, the Riddler, if you're not going to have a load of question marks all over the place? Closing thoughts. It's too long.
It's too. Yeah. There's no justification.
I didn't think it was way too long. I didn't think it was too bad. I settled into it.
I mean, it depends on how you define way too long. If every scene could
if I was going through and cutting stuff out, I don't think I would cut that much out.
You could.
There's a lot of plot in there. You know, there's lots of characters. Penguin, Falcone, Catwoman. There's a lot of stuff going on.
I think almost every scene in that film could be shortened by 30%, and you would lose hardly anything from the film. About that. I think it's a very slow, because you were saying because I don't think there's that much plot in the film for a 3-hour film. I don't think there's that much that happens in it really.
Old Skarsgård got killed off. Old Skarsgård got killed off without hardly any screen time. He's a good actor.
Yeah, he did. Even the little bit of screen, that little scene he had where he was totally high in the club. Even in that, you could see he's a really good actor. Just in that little scene, he
got him in to play a more substantial character.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I maybe. Mind you, I was going to say I maybe would have had him play the Riddler, but then no, Paul Dano's good. He's good as the Riddler.
So, plot-wise, it's quite realistic, and we both thought that was quite good. We quite like the realism. We thought that worked well, but the tone is too serious. It takes itself too seriously.
Too long, too serious. Realism is good. Performances are good, mostly good, but basically the performances are let down by what I consider to be a very one-dimensional, monotone script. I don't think there's much variation. There's no variation in the tone of the film, and there's no variation in the tone of the performances. It's all of a note, of one note all the way through, which just makes it a kind of a boring experience. Like if I am I being too unfairly dismissive if I describe it as a boring film? You
need to be kind of paying attention to even understand what's going on. No. Which kind of one thing I didn't like. It's like that film noir thing of like this really convoluted criminal conspiracy they're trying to follow. So it's like sort of a
mystery
script.
Plot.
So where does it rank in among the Batman movies? You like Batman Returns and Harley and Batman.
Yeah, Batman and Harley is my favourite Batman film.
So it's not the second best.
Hang on, so let me go through. So I probably don't like it quite as much as either of the Tim Burton Batmans, because that first Tim Burton Batman's a bit shit, but it's not as boring as this film is. It's probably better than the two Joel Schumacher Batmans, because they're just crap. I think I actually prefer even though I don't like Chris Nolan, I think I prefer all the Chris Nolan Batmans to this one. It's probably a bit better than the Zack Snyder stuff. Characterization of the Batman, how Batman is presented, I didn't necessarily like that much. I prefer a more human Batman, like the Ben Affleck Batman, the Michael Keaton Batman. And tone-wise, I didn't like it as much as more kind of light-hearted versions of Batman, like the animated series, some of the graphic novel stuff. But in terms of just basic level of quality, it's all right. It's in the middle. So
above the Schumachers and the Snyders.
Above the Schumacher and the Snyder, below the Tim Burton and the Chris Nolan, and also below a lot of the kind of like animated stuff. A lot of the graphic novel stuff, and
I think I maybe put it third best. That might change.
Because
it is less rewatchable. So obviously,
yeah.
Batman Returns is the best one. Dark Knight is good. Lots of good stuff in there.
What was it again? Batman Returns is definitely the best of the proper Batman films.
Yeah. Dark Knight's got a lot of cool stuff in it. I could maybe put it below those two.
Like I say, I don't like the Chris Nolan ones, but they bore me less. So.
Yeah, like you say, I'm not sure if I would be bothered to watch. How bothered I would be if it was on TV. I don't know if I'd be bothered to watch it all again.
Yeah,
because it was a bit too slow and like convoluted. It felt more complete and kind of coherent than most of the Chris Nolan ones, provided you were paying attention to it.
So you'd say it's like of the proper major Batman films, you'd say it's like third best. I'd say it's maybe like sixth best.
Yeah.
So what would you give it out of 5?
I don't know. Number scores are meaningless.
No, they're not.
Give it a 3.
3. I'd give it a 2. I think literally because I was just so bored by it. I think that's more to do with how long it is than how. Partly that's the monotone, flat seriousness of it that bores me, but it's also the length of it that
you can't use this as a review because it's full of spoilers. So people who are
just put spoilers in the
people who are thinking about going to see the film aren't going to want to watch it because you will ruin all the stuff that happens in the film.
Yeah, I give it 2 out of 5. You give it 3 out of 5. So that's 2.5 out of 5 is the official John and Geoff rating for Batman, which means it's not a very good film.
Well, it means it's exactly average by the.
Well, it means it's slightly below average. So it's average or maybe slightly below average. It's average, but maybe a little bit more boring than the average film you'll watch. That's a fair summation, isn't it? I
would say it's better quality than the average Batman film, but more boring than the average Batman film.
Yeah, I think that's a good summary. If it were the exact same film, but cut down to 2 hours, 20 minutes or something. No, you wouldn't even need to go as extreme as bringing it down to 2 hours, but bring it down to 2 hours, 20 minutes. I'll probably give it a 3-star because I thought it was a pretty decent.
Would you change the score?
Film.
Give it a more lively score, like a Danny Elfman score.
I was walking home just now singing because bits of the soundtrack reminded me of that, and it reminded me of the Imperial March, but the Imperial March is that's like a fucking ringtone tune. It's like a tune that people will have played at their funerals and stuff. It's a fucking awesome tune. I don't really understand this mentality of thinking that just 2 chords and no melody played over and over again is the correct way to do soundtracks these days. I don't understand that modern mentality. Whoever the good guys, not James Horner, he's dead, but the good soundtrack composers who make nice music.
I think those classic ones are all dead now. Is Jerry Goldsmith
Goldsmith's
still going?
Dead. I think John Williams is just about still alive.
Barely.
Oh, Morricone died fairly recently, didn't he?
Right. Yeah.
It does seem like the guys who made the soundtracks that you would sit and listen to for their own sake, those guys are kind of a previous generation. They kind of don't. Filmmakers don't want that sort of music anymore, I guess. Geoff and John's summary of this film is all right. It's quite boring. 2 out of 5. See it if you like Batman. Don't see it if you don't like Batman. It's not a must-see film. It's a commendable addition to the Batman canon, I'd say, even though it's not one of the best ones.
He never used the Batman canon.
The Bat canon. It's too big for his utility belt.
Yeah, and that his new Batmobile's not big enough to fit it in anymore.
Yeah, we didn't really get a good look at the Batmobile. It looks sort of like a hot rod
car
with extra.
It was like Dominic Toretto's car with some sort of small rocket engine strapped on the back of it.
It's funny that the new Batmobile probably obeys the laws of physics much more accurately than anything that Dominic Toretto does in his car these days.
Yep.
All right, don't see it. Dominic Toretto. Boom. End of review.
What? Don't see it.